Shalom Bethel family. It is Thursday, time to review our Torah talk here at Congregation Bethel. Actually, we'll have two videos this week, one from parsha Bemidbar, which we read on Saturday morning, that's this video, and another with my remarks from the Yizkor service on the second day of Shavuot, which was this past Monday at Bethel. When we spoke about Bemidbar, Bemidbar is the first Torah portion in the book of Bemidbar, which means in the wilderness, but in English we call it the book of Numbers. It's called the book of Numbers because it's all about, at least this beginning part, about counting the people, counting the tribes, arranging the tribes, counting specifically the Levites and seeing the balance between the Levites and the Israelites, and so on and so forth. And in fact, the parsha opens, take the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel by families, following their fathers' houses, listing the names, every male head by head. Now I want to look at this verse and look at this parsha, and I want to address what was in the news very much the week prior to this past Shabbos, which is the violence around the Gaza Strip, the tens of thousands of Gazans who tried to approach the fence and get into Israel, and the response of the Israeli army, which resulted in the death of over 60 Gazans. We now know over 50 of whom at least were card-carrying members of Hamas. In order to address this, we need to not only look at the parsha, but I want to start with by framing our conversation, by framing our discussion with a Mishnah. And the Mishnah says you should judge everyone on the scale of merit. It's often taken to mean give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But when Maimonides, the Rambam, looks at that teaching, in his commentary, he says, no. It's not that you judge everyone with the benefit of the doubt. It's that you judge them on their own scale of merit. So if you have a scale, if one's behavior is generally towards the ethical and the good, then when you're a little unsure about what happened, you judge them for the good. And when someone, on the other hand, is always on the end of the scale that is unethical, amoral, and not on the side of good, then when you're not so sure what their intentions are, you should judge them on the side of evil. And we cannot start this conversation about the incidents around the Gaza Strip last week without first understanding that Gaza is controlled by a terrorist organization that has in its charter, its established mission is to kill Jews and get them out of the land of Israel. That's who was on the border, right? That's at least 50 of who was shot, right? On the other hand, the Israel Defense Force, look, it's an army, and no army is perfect, and I'm not going to pretend that it is. However, the mass condemnation that we saw doesn't seem to be quite right, because Israel as an army has always behaved, and I believe continues to behave, to try and be moral, to try defend its people no matter what, but to be on the side of morality. And therefore, if this incident last Monday came to the point where live fire had to be used, then the benefit of the doubt says that it had to be used, that it was a last resort, because that is how Israel has always attempted to behave in the past. Okay, so with that in mind, understanding that scale of merit idea, which I think has to be that's the second thing that we have to keep in mind. Here's the first thing, though. So we come back to this verse in Bemidbar, right? Take a sum of the people, counting them, their families, their fathers' houses, listing the names of every male head by head. So why count the people? Rashi gives us an explanation. He says, because they were dear to him. It's like a shepherd with his flock that, God counts the people again and again and again. He counts them in Exodus. He counts them who fell because of the sin of the golden calf. He counts them to know the number of the survivors. He counts them when his divine presence comes to rest on the tabernacle. Again and again and again, God counts the people. And so Rashi says it's like a shepherd, right? When you love something so much, you just want to make sure they're all there, make sure they're all under care. When we count people, that's the idea, right? That we count them because they're precious to us. Now, there's this idea in Judaism that we shouldn't count people, right? Because it's bad luck to give them just a number. Very, very important point, right? So when we go to make a minyan, where we need 10 people to pray, some people will count, no, you're not supposed to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, right? Which is, right, it's absurd. But sometimes, in order to maintain our values, we do the absurd. When we count that way, we're saying, this is a person, not a number. This is a person, not a number. This is a person, not a number. Right? And Gersonides, in commenting on the same thing, points that out. He says, right, the verse says, count them by their families, listing the names. Right? They counted the names rather than the men themselves, says Gersonides, so that no plague would come upon them through being counted. Right? A little superstitious, perhaps, this idea that counting people directly will cause a plague. But the idea that people are by their names, are valued as human beings and not simply as numbers, I think that's what Gersonides is trying to establish. Right? And that's the first thing that we have to remember when we look at what happened in Gaza. If the second thing is judge people on the scale of merit, the first thing, right, is that every life is precious. That no one is just a number. They are all names. The Talmud famously teaches us, right, in this passage about when you're swearing in witnesses, right, remind them that we started out with one person, Adam, and we all came from that person. Why? Because Adam was the first man, was created alone, to teach you in this regard that anyone who destroys one soul, the verse ascribes him the blame as if he has destroyed the entire world. As Adam was one person from whom the population of an entire world came forth, and conversely, anyone who sustains one soul, the verse ascribes him credit as if he has sustained the entire world. Right? That's the bottom line. Any time life is taken, it is a tragedy. And that's where the conversation needs to start. That does not mean that it's not justified. That doesn't mean that there was another choice. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't defend your people or your borders from a terrorist organization. But it means that we always have to start with the understanding that the taking of a life is tragic. That it was not a number that was killed in Gaza. It was a person, and that person had a name. Now, personally, I think that value is upheld incredibly by Israel and not so much by Hamas, right? Hamas is not about protecting life, right? Hamas, I think, based on their track record, will gladly sacrifice life in order for the opportunity to kill Israelis, to carry out their mission of destroying the state of Israel. Right? That's why they use suicide bombers. That's why they sent civilians to charge into a fence carrying babies. Who sends women and children to a place that is known going to be dangerous? Only someone who is looking for a poster child to point to and say, oh, look, look. And that's what makes people count. It's that they are people. When an Israeli soldier falls, as soon as the people are notified, as soon as the family is notified, that name is released to the public so that everyone can mourn for that person together. Now, I don't know what happens inside Gaza, how those names get out, but I know that the leadership of Gaza could not wait to run to the newspapers to give a number. 58 people, 62 people, 64 people killed by Israeli gunfire. On the scale of merit, the Israeli Defense Force gets the benefit of the doubt. They are not out to kill. They are out to protect. On the scale of merit, Hamas, who does not seem to appreciate what makes life count, that life is the most precious thing, that every person is a world, they do not get that benefit of the doubt, because it's not who they are. But we also have to be careful to make sure that's not who we are either. In our rush to defend, look, I'm a Zionist. I'm a member of AIPAC. I'm a member I support FIDF, Friends of the IDF. So I'll put my cards on the table. That's who I am. But I am that because I believe in the mission of the Israeli Defense Force. I believe in protecting the lives of the people, Jews and non-Jews, inside the state of Israel, and protecting the integrity of that country. As soon as in our rush, people like me, our rush to defend and rationalize the activities of the IDF, if we forget step one, right? Number two in the response, we have downgrade. Judge on the scale of merit. IDF always gets the benefit of the doubt. Okay. But we can't forget principle one, which is that every life matters, even a Hamas terrorist's life. It is life, it is a gift from God, no matter how it has been misused. And we have to have that before our eyes. That's what keeps the nation of Israel ethical. It's what keeps the IDF on that moral scale of merit. And as we start our conversation, we must remember it always starts first with every loss of life is tragic. Does not mean it's not justified, but it's always tragic. I'd like to close this discussion with one of my favorite poems by Yehuda Amichai. It's called Torah. Right? Yehuda Amichai, the great poet, says, "Once I sat on the steps at a gate at David's tower," right? David's citadel in the old city. "I placed my 2 heavy baskets at my side. A group of tourists was standing around their guide, and I became their target marker. 'You see that man with the baskets? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head. But he's moving! He's moving!' I said to myself, redemption will come only if their guide tells them, 'You see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important, but next to it, left and down a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruit and vegetables for his family.'" Right? It is the people that matter. My Monday night, after I saw all this tragedy, I had an Uber ride home, and my Uber driver, whose name was Ali, we started talking. He saw the kippah on my head. It turned out he's a Turkish Kurd, and he said to me, "You know, I'm so angry about what's happening. These Arab dictators like Erdogan in my country, Turkish dictator, you know, they scapegoat Israel to take the focus off of them," he said. And I said, wow, could be me speaking. They said something very important that I think we can't forget. He said, if you want to understand the situation, you only have to understand one thing. He said, Hamas in the Gaza Strip are the kind of people morally who will send civilians to their death to make their point. And in Israel, the people, the country, the nation, the morals will not accept even one death of the people under their watch and the people they're protecting, and will therefore obviously try and prevent death among their enemies as well. That is the scale of merit. I hope that we're all able, as we pray for peace in the area, we hope that that things come down and all life is protected on both sides of the Gaza border fence, that we will also always remember that what makes Israel special, what makes the Jewish people moral and makes our values so important in the world is that principle. One life, any life, has the value of an entire world. And to save them, that has the value of the entire world as well. May we all, as we go forward, keep that principle first. Always work for life in the world and pray for peace in Israel and its surrounding territories. Amen.